What's happening, YouTube? This is Immortal Coil, your future minister of whiskey mysticism. Revolution is my name. And today, we're talking the State of the Union of Star Wars. Now, before you make a direct hit with your proton torpedoes down the exhaust port, I'd like to ask you to like, share, subscribe. Let me know down in the comments below what you want to see covered on future editions of Savage Spirituality. It's difficult to evaluate new Star Wars products if you have the knowledge of what's going on behind the scenes. Now, I'm not speaking to the fact that I have particular inside sources, but there are enough movers and shakers in the fandom menace to put this puzzle together to give you an idea of what the working conditions at Disney LucasFilm is like as they are attempting to create new content. There are things that have traction with the fans that are going to shit. There are things in comic books that should be extremely fascinating, but they point to the sequel trilogy. And there are things that Disney LucasFilm is putting out in multimedia format that are absolutely pregnant with identity politics. Let's take a look at each, shall we? The Mandalorian, up until about February 2021, was the best thing that Disney Lucasfilm had going for it. We had Jon Favreau and David Filoni coming together, two of the most epic storytellers in fucking fantasy land, who were absolute disciples of the George Lucas vision for Star Wars. Now, if you've seen the Clone Wars and you've seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, you know that David Filoni likes to weave a narrative and go off on several wild hares, but bring it together in a cohesive and impactful conclusion. Jon Favreau can sympathize. He did the same thing in MCU. Putting those two together was a natural recipe for success in the land of Disney Star Wars. They gave us many triumphant and emotional moments, culminating in the return of Luke Skywalker. And we were floating on air for a day or two. Even amongst the ilk of the fandom menace, we were optimistic for the most part. We were happy, we were pleased. There was very little to bitch about in those couple of days following Luke Skywalker's return, the return of the Jedi. But then we remember the type of audience that Disney Lucasfilm is trying to pitch this new Star Wars, and it should be like NU with an umlaut, Star Wars. These people whose assholes Disney Lucasfilm is trying to lick are never going to be satisfied. So what happened? Fire Gina Carano became a thing. Rosario Dawson, you got a target painted on your back. And then they're going after Bill Burr now, calling him a racist and all this kind of shit, even though he's married to the lovely Nia, who is a stand-up lady. I'm a Bill Burr fan, guys. Now, I would direct you to other Fandom Menace videos to hear more information about that. But based on things like that, and the fact that Pedro Pascal has signed on to HBO's treatment of The Last of Us, which in itself is its own tiny little shit show if you're a gamer. And if you're... check out Lethal Lightning and Geeks and Gamers for more info about that. But essentially, if Pedro Pascal and this new show take off on HBO, he's probably going to bow out of The Mandalorian. Now I can say this, there's enough Mandalorian characters. I mean, you still got Bo-Katan and Boba Fett who can sit there and fight over the Darksaber. And honestly, they can probably get any guy to don the Mando's armor and anybody who can make a smoky voice and be like, "Hey, kid." I mean,
you can switch voice actors fairly easily and come up with similar plot points. You don't necessarily need Pedro Pascal. Honestly, they can do a Mace Windu and decapitate him, and then the fucking Darksaber's up for grabs. Then you got this new series of Darth Vader 2020. And I have to give it up to Star Wars Bessie, who's Star Wars comics now. He was one of those guys that I listened to before I ever dreamed of having a YouTube channel. Very informative. Go check his shit out. Good guy. Love his content. His most recent video has talked about the art on the temple wall of the Sith temple at Exegol, which we saw in The Rise of Skywalker. In a Sith iteration of the Lingaraj temple in India, we see characters who look like Darth Malgus and Darth Revan. And that's the way that they're supposed to be folded into current Disney LucasFilm canon. Now, I will give you this. Writer Greg Pak, for the most part, is treating Vader with reverence. In this current 2020 iteration, he went and found out more about Padme after he lost Luke down the hole in Empire Strikes Back. But for revisiting his past, Palpatine absolutely crushed him with the Force, dumped his ass on Mustafar, forbade him to use the Force, and said, "Crawl your fucking way out of this, without my help this time." Well, Vader will not be stopped, and he will not die. But after speaking with the Eye of Webbish Bog and getting the McMuffin, well, he flies his ass to Exegol and enters the Sith Acolyte temple there, where Snoke is going to be grown, and this impossible fleet of Death Star tech-equipped Star Destroyers are being built, and where somehow not blown up Emperor Palpatine is going to retire instead of Florida. Now, yes, I'm excited that Darth Revan and Darth Malgus, and we already have Darth Bane, they're all part of the Disney canon as it currently exists. That's all well and good, but the fact that Darth Vader is on Exegol still makes Jake Skywalker a sea manatee tit-sucking coward asshole. That's not my Luke. This is not the Luke that came and forcefully took Grogu. And the only way that Disney Lucasfilm seems to find to negate all that shit is to fire all these people who were integral in creating the vision of Favronli. They can't go after the story, so they're going after the storytellers. Disney Lucasfilm is shooting the messengers, people. Why? Because Favronli upset the apple cart. The Cray Cray KK version of Star Wars was already being hyped up and touted as a multimedia masterpiece in the modern age. And then Luke Skywalker comes out and they fuck, you can't use him. They actually have like pictures of him posted in their cubicles with his face X'd out, because that's not the way to go. He's a toxic white male and blah, 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 blah. But does the High Republic have anything to offer? There are several other Phantom Menace YouTube channels who cover this shit in depth, but what I can tell you is, for myself, I looked at the first 3 issues of the Star Wars High Republic comic book. And again, I tried to divorce my mind from all this backstage shit that I am aware of and just evaluate strictly on storytelling merits. Now, here's the weird thing about the High Republic. A lot of derivative voices, including the Phantom Menace, said, okay, it's not a big deal if you want representation and diversity and blah, blah, blah. Just make up your own characters and make sure that it doesn't come close to touching anything that's classic. Don't rework things. Don't do the Pando Lando thing that pissed us off in the first place. Make your own shit. So I think elements at Disney Lucasfilm said, okay, we'll try that. and came up with the High Republic. So this is like way before the Skywalker saga. A couple centuries, as a matter of fact. And at this point, there's only 3 issues available to me. It tells this tale of the Padawan turned Jedi Knight, Keeve, her former master, Master Skier, who ends up battling the dark side, and Master Chris, Marshal of the Starlight Beacon. All of this seems very much like the new iteration of She-Ra, Princess of Power, Kitty Poo-Poo, Girl Power, that kind of shit. And in evaluating the comic, which, if you evaluate it on a story, so far, it's not terrible, but it's not great. Jedi Keeve is the half-head shaven, African-American, shit-talking Padawan turned Jedi. And a lot of her responses in the comic is very atypical for a Jedi. She speaks too much in the vernacular and is too outside the Force to warrant being a proper Jedi Knight. She still has Padawan thinking. And if you compare her to Ahsoka Tano was never truthfully knighted as a Jedi. Her petulance is understood as a Padawan, but you can't take that petulance past the trials with great strife to your inner character and emerge the still snarky, slightly narcissistic, self-centered being that would have been eliminated by the Force during your trials. Yet she still somehow possesses them, even unto her Jedi knighthood. Now, Master Chris, and I can't get this out of my head, a couple years back, Brie Larson was photographed at Galaxy's Edge, the Star Wars amusement park. She built her own $250 fucking lightsaber, threw on a hood, and said, "Hey Disney, I'd love to be a Jedi sometime, call me." And then some fucker on the internet, and you guys can post the comments if you know who it was, said, "Hey, you know, Master Chris looks an awful lot like Brie Larson. I wonder if they make a live movie of the High Republic, if they could get her to play Master Chris." Which is all we'd fucking need. Fucking Carol Danvers in Star Wars. They're just so stupid they might fucking make that happen. And I started looking through this because if you look at it as a story, aside from those complaints that I have, it's an original story. I'll give them that. But if you look at the identity politics which are associated with it, the only human Jedi depicted thus far have been women. Okay, you got She-Ra, the Princess of Power, as Master Chris, and then you got community college cultural studies Jedi in Keeve. Now, I thoroughly scanned the whole thing, and the only human male is an ignorant little boy who stumbles into a trap. And this is so far. I don't know what the future is for this, but I think the writing's on the wall. And I really think this Lucasfilm Civil War is a no shit thing.
Yes!